Second.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority for Wednesday, August 11th, 2021 at 6 p.m. to order. We will have the invocation and then the pledge. Please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, watch over us as we do court business today. Please keep us in the thoughts as we try to make the best decisions we possibly can for the operation and well-being of our citizens we serve. Please watch over our servicemen and women out there taking care of us every day to fight on the front lines, to keep us safe at home, and keep us all safe and in your prayers and with them. In your Son's heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hill. Here. Commissioner Hanna.
Here.
Commissioner Franklin.
Here.
Vice Chairman Cole.
Here.
Chairman Fullwood.
Present.
Thank you.
We'll start off tonight with audience comments, and it looks like we've got several, and most of them are talking about the same thing. So let me. We'll start with Michael Spino.
Mr. Chairman, I would defer to Mr. Ross and Kozak and they don't have it, but I think that after they're done.
All right. Let me also remind you, you have 3 minutes for public comment. Here is Mark.
I'm going to take the same stand. I'm going to defer right now. And if
All right.
there's anything not covered, then I'd like to speak.
Mr. Ross. Please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you.
You got your timer ready?
Time again now.
Yep.
Sure. My name is Chip Ross, 210 North 3rd Street, Virginia Beach, Florida. I'll just start out with 2 things. First, 3 things. Number 1, I gave you a list of questions. I would hope you would come up with answers to those questions or a process for answering them. I sent that to you as an email previously. Number 2, I'd like to bring your attention that the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board has a website called MMA. And on that, there are all kinds of documents about your port operator. I would refer you and public to that statement. And then I'll skip forward all those questions to actually the last one. Probably my most of the people are here. On 12 July 2021, OHPA's representative submitted a raised grant application to the federal government. The proposed plan required expanding the port footprint outside the current port footprint into the historic district, abandoning and closing current city streets on Front Street, North 2nd Street, and Dade Street, widening Dade Street, and creating 20 new trucking loading bays. Quoting from the grant proposal that was proposed, the approval of this project was conducted over multiple Ocean Highway Port Authority meetings that are conducted in public forums with the ability of all citizens in Nassau County to make their voices heard regarding this project. In addition, the opening commissioners acted as duly elected officials in Nassau County, elected unanimously to move forward with this project. And that came right out of your grant application. So my question is, and what I'd like to hear the commissioners respond to, do you unanimously support this grant proposal, which expands The footprint of the port, which closes Dade Street, closes Front Street, closes from 2nd Street, and there's 22 trucking bays and a large number of other things. Or would you support this unanimously? And if so, why? And how did a grant get submitted if you don't support it unanimously to the federal government? Okay. I'll answer off to you.
Are we responding to questions?
We will, let's get into the Ms. Cusack?
Thank you. Tammy Kozak, 322 North 3rd Street, Fernandina. My home is directly across from the Fort Warehouse and the Dade Street gate. Before purchasing, I studied many city documents, and after learning about the final DRI for the port, which clearly outlines adherence to the existing port footprint, I felt comfortable investing a good bit of money in this area. Recently, multiple properties around me have undergone improvement. We've pumped millions of dollars into our economy, purchasing, renovating, or building new homes, employing local workers, increasing the property values, and paying property taxes. The proposed new entry gate will cut off the north part of our historic district with a queuing potential for 9 semi-trucks lined up just feet from homes. Expansion on the south side for increased warehousing is on a hazmat site that previously held petroleum tanks. Policy 2.1.13 of the Port Authority's master plan states, prior to any future expansion of the city's port facilities, all plans or proposals for expansion shall be reviewed by the city. Neither the city governing bodies nor the citizens were given this opportunity, and we have questions. If improvements will decrease local truck traffic and emissions, why is such an enlarged queuing area needed along with a 20-day loading dock? Have transportation mobility studies been performed to see how the infrastructure change on 2nd and Front Streets will impact traffic patterns, emergency vehicle access, and pedestrian flow? Landside connectivity touts a clear shot from the port to the 6-lane 200A1A highway, yet leaves out our already overburdened 8th Street corridor and Dade Street. On the hazmat site near Broome, has an environmental study been done to see if this is a brownfield and if remediation of ground contamination is needed? How does the new tidewater management system affect the estuary in Alligator Creek? Commissioners, this was a flawed application process. It is not shovel ready. There were disingenuous statements and representations made to City Commission in order to get their letter of support. Following the location of the port, which is tucked into the historic district of tourism-driven Fernandina, a rural area, is patently false. One of the missions of the Port Authority is to seek grants to continue the safe and prudent operations of the port. Yet it is incumbent upon you to exert oversight to ensure grants are not sought with false assertions and vague data. Many people in this room represent a much larger group of concerned citizens of Fernandina and Nassau County. Neighbors, stand if you are in agreement with what I have said thus far. Commissioners, you've said you want a better relationship with the city of Fernandina. That's done through transparency and building trust. With continued revitalization of the area directly above the port, new residents moving in, and the newly elected commissioner for our district, this could be an ideal time for relational improvements. However, rather than a hand extended by the port as a handshake, we got a slap in the face. Based upon the vast amount of citizen opposition and the disingenuous way support was sought, I ask you to rescind the fatally flawed application put forth with your names on it. Thank you.
What she said, sir, please rescind your point.
Good evening. My name is Gary Bob, and I live at 310 Escambia Street, Fernandina Beach, and I'm along the port there, right below the courthouse. I agree with everything that was said. I'm not going to beat up points already made. 3 things I'm going to bring up real quick is, why do all of us live here? We all know there's a port. I moved here recently. I knew there was a port. I have no issue with the port, but the footprint's supposed to remain the same. I don't think anybody here wants to have streets closed and see the port expand beyond its footprint. That's not why people live in front of the beach. Second, what is the justification for them to expand? According to a 2014 survey, they can do up to 900,000 gross metric tons, and they're not even at half of that capacity right now. By the projection, they're supposed to have 265 ships. Year to date is like 65. They have facilities that they're not using, truck bays that are cemented shut that they're not using. And although we have dredged the river channel, you can only get a certain size vessel because it has to swing, it has to turn. So I don't understand what the justification is when they're not even meeting what they projected or what they're able to do with what they have. And I'm just gonna stop there. Those are my main points. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of you very much for your comments. We usually don't respond to audience comments right away, but there's something I need to say. And then I'll let the other commissioners, if they want to say something. This RAISE grant is an application to apply for grants. We have not received any grants, and until we receive those grants and the ability to apply for each individual grant, we haven't done anything. We've given the operator permission to apply for the grants, and he has to fill out certain requirements to be able to do that. If he has the ability to do that, the federal government allows him to do that. And he comes back to us with grant requests, it has to come before this board. And believe me, we will look at every grant. We will make sure it doesn't do any harm to the city. I can tell you now, I would never be in favor of closing any streets, especially Dave Street. I'm a native of this town. I was born and raised here. I've used that street more times than I can tell you. It's good access in and out of the city. And I just don't believe it's necessary to close it. And I just will vote against that. So I can assure you, at least you'll have one vote in your favor. We have to look at each individual grant. There are grants that will help us with flood control. We'd like to see those grants and see how that can apply to the city and to the port and how we can improve flood control. There are grants to allow us to increase our warehouse space on the port site. I know there's some other things in there, but they have not, nothing has come before us yet. And I think people have the misconception that if we've already applied for those grants and we will receive them. That's not the case. At least that's my understanding. And I can assure you, you will be involved in those grants. I will make sure of that. As chairman, I'll make sure of that. And I'm sure the other commissioners will make sure of that. We'll give you an opportunity to speak on each one of them that the operator applies for. So believe me, we understand what the situation is. We will definitely take all that into consideration. And I guarantee you, we will not do anything to hurt this city. This is my city too. Any other commissioner would like to talk?
Yes, I would like to say that I agree with what Chairman Forward has said. We just saw this as our board director saw this as an opportunity to help the port, and he applied for the grant. He had to have some basis or some outline of what the money would be spent on. Again, it is not concrete. We won't, until we receive the grant, we won't have any due process with it until we figure out what we're going to get. So we're not going anywhere with this until we find out for sure. But to try to pull back to our port. And we need the opportunity to grow our port.
Guys, it's a broad stroke. We're just trying to apply for a grant for different ways, for different things that we can improve upon in the port. The port needs to grow, and we need to improve different avenues for the port. That's all we're trying to do. We're trying to see what kind of governmental money is out there, so we can do things to fix problems that are going on. Help the operator do things. So
If you read the damn thing, excuse me, you want to have a seat, I'll have you removed. Don't do that again.
Actually, I have read it. Again, it's a broad stroke. No money's been given. Once the money's received, once we know what we can do, then we can apply for different ways to improve.
That's a very big bullshit.
Okay, I'm sorry you feel that way.
There'll be no outburst from the gallery. If you do, I've got some gentlemen back here that will remove you. So don't do that again. Any other commissioner? I'll answer some questions.
Sure. So I really appreciate you all coming out, and there are a lot of other things you can be doing with your time this evening. And we don't get a lot of visitors to the meeting, so I'm glad that you're engaging with what's going on with the board, and I really appreciate your time tonight. I'm very concerned, frankly. I had to request a copy of the grant application from the federal government. I did not see a copy of that application before it was submitted. I've spoken with almost every city commissioner, and the city of Fernandina Beach is very open to hearing and engaging with us and connecting with us and collaborating with us on grants and projects if they are approved by this board. If this board, as an elected entity accountable to the public who elected us, will personally appoint the chairman to execute these grant applications on our behalf. So that when we witness to the world what Nassau County wants to do, when we provide vital documents to the federal government, we represent Nassau County to the wider world, that we make sure that it fits what the public wants and helps our economy. And that's it.
You know, I've been on this commission almost 12 years, and I have heard of no Dade Street want to be closed. But we're not here to close your streets. They have been talk of a street that dead ends into the port, one of the warehouses. There was Michael Trina being closed, but not closed, but just being detoured. And the warehouse that has been proposed to build outside the port footprint is right behind one of the warehouses. It's an old abandoned fuel station of Florida Petroleum. They had thousands and thousands of gallons of gasoline and diesel fuel sitting there for years and years, which was more of a hazard to y'all than any ship that's on there. This warehouse, if this allowed to be built, and the board director of the commission does decide to build it, and we get permission on the building, it'll cut down and get truck traffic. It's right along the railroad tracks, to the where there'll be more freight coming in by the trains than the real, and you won't have all these trucks coming in. You'll cut out 5, 10, 15% of the truck traffic just because of the location of the warehouse.
This is such a hot item. Don't usually do this, but I will allow you, if you have a question, to come up and identify yourself and ask your question, and we'll try to answer it for you. Come up, please.
Thank you for hearing me again. Just two questions that I got after listening to you all. If this is what you say, Commissioner Forward, just an application to see if you might qualify for a raise grant, should that be predicated on false statements and misleading statements?
Who made false statements?
We're classified as a rural, underprivileged area. There's several misleading statements in that plan. Second, to the attorney who is no longer with us. Well, there you go. If you come to our city and you see the street you're talking about, that is State Street, that runs to the end and dead ends with the warehouses. That is State Street.
Right.
Further, where the warehouse is proposed to be extended for more train traffic, currently there are sometimes trains lined up so far, it goes all the way down to Center Street and it blocks access. And that's our major pedestrian and our vehicular crossing. So if we have even more trains stacked up, it's more of a cluster that people can't get back and forth through. So maybe it cuts down traffic, but why do we have 20 days and why do we have to stack up for 9? I don't know. So are we claiming to help one thing and then hurting another? The businesses are not in favor of this because of the pedestrian traffic and they're concerned. And I speak on behalf of the Main Street and the businesses. They're concerned that we're turning from an historic Main Street into just an industrialized town and they're going to lose business. So it is a big issue. There's lots of questions. And we do question this application as just the first vetting process. It is my understanding from speaking with Howard Hale in Washington that this is for grants to be awarded based on the application. Thank you.
Let me answer, let me answer one question. The train traffic, you know, those tracks go all the way to the mill.
Yes.
And most of the traffic on those tracks go to that mill. Very few come to us. And they're put off on side rails. They're not on the same rail. Once they get there, they're put off on side rails. So any further train traffic, which would not be a great deal, will be on the side rail. So that is not going to block more traffic.
In order to get to this,
at Center Street.
in order to get to the side rails, it's such a short switching area. They have to go forward and then pull back and go forward and pull back. And it is a long process and it's a short area for a long process and it does take time. So any incremental increase in train cars there will hinder traffic.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yes.
I just want some clarity on if this is an application for an application or if this is an application for grant money directly.
It's an application to apply for the grants that will allow us to apply for.
Okay, so then there's another step after this application.
Correct. That's what I said. And that any of those grants, any singular grant will come before this commission to be approved. We'll have to sign off on it.
Before money is awarded.
Before any money is awarded.
That's what I needed to clarity on, because once you get grant money, it's probably pretty hard to just give it back.
Well, it isn't.
Who would make the decision? How easy is what I'm saying? Once you have money in your hands, it's difficult to give it back. So who makes the decision to give the money back?
Well, if it's not done in a certain length of time, we have time. If it's not done within a certain length of time, we take it back.
But they're not, again, these are applications to apply for a grant.
Okay, I guess.
So,
Yeah.
so we're trying to see what we can get, we're shaking the tree.
Right.
Once they tell us, okay, well, you can apply for this one, this one, this one, this one. Again, it was a broad stroke. And we'll go through each one individually, discuss amongst us, with you guys involved, it'll all be out there for you, and figure out which ones are best for the area and for the board. Again, there's no money to be exchanged in any way. We're just trying to apply this to.
I guess we just got conflicting information because I was under the impression, like Tammy was direct information from them that this application was for the grant, not an application
No.
to apply for the
Well,
grant.
people should ask us instead of taking it for granted.
But we got it directly we got that information directly from their office. So that's
Who's on it?
the DOT in D state.
Okay.
So,
All right.
You know, we were told this is what we had to apply for in order to find out if we can get to
so
the money.
who gave you that information?
That would be Department, the DOT, Department of Transportation.
I guess we just need some clarity on that. Thank you.
Also, like I said, there was a couple of grants that will be coming down with that. They have to do with flood control, and, we've been asked to do work better using, or trying to improve our flood control problems that we have in port. And it will not only help us, it will help the city. So that's one of the grants we'll be looking at. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'll take two more. Just one more.
Making the way up. So I have gone in and looked at our grants as recently as today in the CSIP system. And this item does come up later on in our agenda. That's the, if you look at the agenda, it has it, if you go to the section on unfinished business, there are two items that pertain directly to what you all are concerned about. One is the RSC scope of work, where we'll be discussing our strategic master plan. And I will encourage this board to not strike the citizen engagement components of that proposal. And I will also encourage my board members to consider adding back in the sustainability issues, which have just been stricken, so that will actually be included in our planning, sustainability and citizen engagement. And then the other item where this might come up, if you scroll down to new business, S7 FDOT, where we'll discuss our grant performance and individual grants that have raised serious concerns with the Florida Department of Transportation for lack of performance. So if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to.
Hi, good evening. My name is Frances Griffiths, and I live at 309 North Fifth Street. My question to you is if this is an application to do an application, then how did you manage to how did they manage to fill out that application that all of you and the city commissioners have approved everything already?
There were no meetings either from the applicant. That's the straight.
Okay, so because it just didn't make any sense to me. I'm just worried about whether you're going to manage to do it because I've lived in the same place for 45 years. And I remember a meeting that I had with all of you about 15 years ago when you told me that no trucks would line up on Dade Street. They would not be there overnight. And God, at 2 in the morning, they're there. 5 in the morning, they're there. And yet you all assured everyone, I can remember the meeting incredibly well in the city commission chambers. And you made us that promise. So I'm wondering what's the value of the promises.
Well, I don't think any of us were on board at that time. We will certainly look at that and see if we can come up with a better what's going on. One more, Ms. Ross. One more thing.
Across 210 North Third Street. With all due respect, sir, you have said this is an application for an application, but here's your application. And it's U.S. Department of Transportation, Rebuilding America, is part of your application. And it says, quote, ready to go. Preliminary architectural and engineering work is complete. Once funding is secured, this project will be able to start with completion schedule in 3 years. It's a little bit different, sir, than an application for an application. Thank you.
Just direct a quick answer, Mr. Chairman, on that technical issue. Mr. Ross is incorrect. This is an application for grants. Any grant awards are made on a conditional basis, and there's up to 1 year to negotiate grant agreements between the Port Authority and the federal government based on specific projects, as you correctly indicated. So this is just an application, and any grant, you don't just get a check in the mail. If you get selected, it's a conditional award, and that starts the real dialogue with the city. It'll be covered in the master plan, and OHPA will ultimately approve any project. And only after that's all approved and the feds agree and sign the grant agreement, then the money starts to flow. So you may not get an award. Even if you get an award, you may never get any money for the project. The whole process lies in front of us Nothing's been done other than a creative application based on conceptual plans, period.
Okay, I'm gonna cut off any comments now. You may stick around if you like, and after the meeting, we'll answer any other questions you might have, individual commissioners, but if you'd like to come back another time, we don't have these grants yet. And so when we get them, we can't, I'm not what we're doing, what we won't do. All we'll do is look at them. We'll let you help us decide whether they're needed or not. I know that some people are shaking their head. You don't know. You don't want flood control? I can't believe that, because that's not what I've been hearing lately. All right, so we'll move on. Thank you for coming. You're welcome to stay around if you like. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. If any of you would like to leave, you may do so, or you can stick around. Meeting will come back to order. You'll have a seat, please. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. You want to take them together or separate? Commissioner?
Yes.
Well, let me, motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes. Discussion.
Yes, this was a bit of a correction on page 7, of the July 14th minutes after the meeting. There's a dialogue there about the Commissioner Bill asking about one of our employees, Mr. Louis Poteet. She's been a long-time employee of the board, and she values her privacy. And she's asked that her name be removed from the minutes, and actually, she is not the grant administrator. I am. As you see later in that paragraph, I confirm that I certify the reports that we filed from that, not Ms. Poteet. We introduced her at the time we were discussing the grant agreement, because she processes and puts the paperwork together, and I review and my signature on the FDOT grants, and that she's done federal grants in years past. So she's part of that sort of process in assembling the reports, but she's not the grant administrator. I am. So if we could just clean this up and take her name out of it, and then she can leave as much as you need in there, but just if we could remove Ms. Poteet's name, I'd appreciate that.
You're asking me? Maybe you should be asking Albert.
If it's a factual correction, it's fine to remove her name, but for privacy purposes or something like that, that's not appropriate. But if it's a factual correction, the minutes could be changed to reflect the correct factual information. I'm just going on what he says. I can't verify that. I have no idea, but it would be the same as if you got the wrong date or the wrong address. If the name's wrong, you can fix it for that reason alone.
Yeah, it's a factual correction. She's not the grant administrator.
Well, we can remove part of that grant administrator. I don't know if we can remove her name.
Well, her name is stated in connection with her being grant administrator, so that's factually correct.
If that's the reference is that Ms. Poteet is the grant administrator and that's incorrect and it needs to be corrected, then it would just be corrected.
I thought the minutes were supposed to reflect what was discussed in the meeting.
But I think the point, it'd be like if you discussed #1 Happy Street and that's the incorrect address, the minutes would need to reflect the correct address if that's what you meant. So if you can object that they're your minutes, so you can object.
I'll give reasons. So Ms. Poteet came to our meeting on September 23rd, I believe. We had a special meeting in our Attorney General advised the board that he was not qualified to serve as our grant administrator. At that time, Ms. Poteet came forward, introduced herself to the board, gave us her full name, her background, her resume, and said she was going to be our grant administrator. I know because I've reviewed those minutes recently. And this board said, okay, against Jen's advice.
Right.
So she has volunteered for public service to this board as our grant administrator.
She never said that. That's incorrect. She's not the grant administrator.
Okay.
Maybe we mistaken those minutes. She said she would be working on putting together the reports for myself.
Excuse me. You don't have the floor right now.
Okay.
So I object to the privacy plan because she volunteered for this role. And at the last meeting, Mr. Noguchi, who does certify many documents on behalf of this board in fiduciary capacity, said that she was the grant administrator and that she makes reports to him and that he certifies on behalf. And I think changing the minutes to make a correction for something that he's now realized is improper is completely inappropriate.
We're going to change this. 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 said, that's what was in the minutes, that's what should be.
The motion to made and seconded to approve the minutes as there was an objection. No further comments. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. No consent items. Court accountant report, court accountant is sick tonight, he's not here. You've got the report in front of you. Are there any questions about it? You're not available.
No, he's not.
Is there a question on that?
No, I was just wondering, we were just going to discuss and then provide a report back to him, or?
Well, you want, is there anything on it you want to discuss?
So is this the part where we're going to discuss your budget?
No. Financial report, the own annual audit engagement letter. So now we have an engagement letter that we need to talk about.
Yes, and I was going to have Pierre, because he told me to put that on the agenda.
And this is for what purpose? Engage them for another year.
For another year. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hold that for next. All right, the next thing is the budget 21-22. Let me say something first about the budget. As most of you know, we've received a COVID grant. We'll call it a COVID grant. That's not what the term is. That grant will help us fund this study. I have talked to FDOT. I have submitted questions to them, talked extensively to them. And what I've been told is that grant can help us fund a lot of different things. The questions that I ask can or cannot be used for things such as salaries, special district fees, membership dues, that there's Far Ports Council and FSTED, Economic Development, TPO dues, Chamber of Commerce, and also the CSX right away. And what I was told that membership, subscriptions, and professional activity costs of the non-federal entity membership in business, technical, and professional organizations are allowable. Costs of the non-federal entities, subscription to business, professional, technical periodicals are allowed. Costs of membership in any civic or community organizations are allowable. The prior approval by the federal awarding agency or pass-through activity. Cost of memberships in any country club, social or dining club or organization are unallowed. Cost of memberships in other organizations, lobbying purposes are unallowed. Those are just some of the things he told me. The items listed in the email that I sent him appear to be He said appeared to be operating expenses. Generally, operating expenses are allowable costs. Not allowable costs to be listed in the forthcoming grant agreement, federal grant program requirements, and federal uniform grant guidance. Certain unallowable costs are explicitly listed and described. And some membership costs are unallowable. I would suggest that within the next month, we will know more about exactly what we can use this money for. I would suggest we wait until we get that information before we approve the budget, before we go any further with the budget. As we talked in our budget workshop to reduce a lot of fees and other things. I suggest that we wait before doing that, because maybe even our master plan, we may not have to take all those things out. You don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. We don't talk to them about that tonight. So I think we should wait at least until next month, until we can get more information and find out exactly what we can do. Patrick, you got a comment?
No, this is on the agenda later, and we have a resolution that DOT requires. So,
right.
We had to put that together pretty last minute to make it in time for this meeting, but the item is on the agenda, so we can talk about that then.
All right, very good.
Budget, I had something to add. I did reach out to Mike Rubin, who watched our budget meeting live, and he said that he is going to support a 25% reduction across the board in all Board of Works Council dues for all works. That's what he's going out with this board meeting. He also said that several other smaller boards that have requested to pay their Board of Works Council dues as available. So as the study becomes available, we pay our dues throughout the year instead of one lump sum. He said that he will elevate that to the board, and then several of his boards are so fiscally constrained they're not able to attend the meeting. And especially with the recent surge, he said he would happily carry the written request and ask for that so that we wouldn't have to incur the cost.
Well, Mike has still got that.
Well, Mike Rubin said he offers to take that written proposal if he wanted to save without the cost.
There's other things that will come up that I need to be privy to, and I feel like it's a great opportunity to be there to represent the board and to network with other people.
One of the things we discussed in the budget meeting was whether or not the Board of Works Council is beneficial to this board. I'm glad that you say that just now, because I believe that being a member is very beneficial to this board. And I did not support OHPA's withdrawal from the Board of Works Council, especially in light of our allocation for $70,000.
Okay. All right. And do you want to wait till next month to talk about the budget, or you want to do a workshop in between? I think we should wait till we get the information we need first.
I would like to have a workshop. If we're not having any further discussions tonight, I continue to request that we lower our salaries this evening as part of our budget considerations for next year, and to make the same case that I continue to make, which is that we should adopt the budget with deficit funding. The $70,000 that may change after our budget plans. That is one thing, but that's a one-time grant. That's not the operations of the court. And if we have an operating that pays us a certain amount of money, we should be funding our salaries out of ongoing proceeds and revenues of the court on a sustainable basis, not deficit funding, or using one-time payments to fund our salaries. But I keep saying that. I know you're probably as tired of hearing it as I am tired of saying it. But I'll say it again, and I'm done.
Okay. Any other considerations about a workshop, or do you want to wait till next meeting? We'll get the information.
Could we do a workshop, like, say, 3 weeks? Do you think we have information that we can talk about it?
No, you know.
So we schedule something, and then if not, cancel?
We could do that.
You know what I'm saying? So we
That's what I'm going to do.
You know what I'm saying? Like push it 3 weeks so we give some time for the joint apples out. And if we don't have the information, we wait till the budget, another meeting. But at least it gives us a window to discuss freely what's going on with the funding.
Okay. How about if the resolution passes tonight, I will talk to Mr. Ryan at DOT tomorrow. Okay. Get a sense from him of what the timeline is, what other hoops and hurdles we need to jump over and through, and then I can advise the board on whether it's imminent or whether waiting a month is not going to hurt.
Okay. And then if we need to go ahead and do it, then try to workshop and give you some dates.
Okay. Absolutely.
Chairman Fulwood,
Yes.
may I remind the board that we need to approve the budget September,
Yeah.
Sorry.
in September.
Yeah.
September 8th.
Right. So we're trying to have a workshop before then, is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out about the funding.
Yeah, of course, yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
I would like to have a workshop too, just because you're working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll plan it. And I'll let you know today. Okay. Patrick gets back with that. Okay. Moving on. Board attorney report. You're up.
Thank you, Chairman. There's only one thing on the agenda, but I've also included a draft agreement with the city of Fernandina Beach regarding the sewer line. I think Rosanna got that to everybody. It's not quite final. We've provided some comments back to the city attorney regarding some indemnification language. I have not heard back from her. She said the project is slated to begin in September. So I wanted you all to be able to approve the memorandum of understanding tonight, but the language isn't final. And I don't know exactly when in September they're going to start, whether it's before or after our board meeting. So I'll continue to update her. But the general terms are what we've discussed and with the consensus of the board was to move forward, which is they will perform and pay for the project. We will retain an engineer to inspect and certify the work. And then we will, and by we, I mean OHPA, will assume responsibility and liability going forward and acknowledge the abandonment of the right of way. So none of those terms have changed. Just some indemnity language we want to fine tune. So I will keep you updated on that. But I think we're close to the finish line.
Yes, and we talked about this at the last meeting, and I thought we got approved to go ahead and doing that, but maybe we didn't.
We had approved you had approved the general terms as I just discussed them, but an actual agreement hadn't yet been drafted. And when I shared it with you, Chairman, you correctly expressed the desire for the whole board to see it and approve it. And so I'll just get it to you as fast as I can. It may be if the work is slated to begin September 1, then maybe it's something we need to include on a special workshop agenda so you can approve it, but I'm pushing it and I'll keep everybody updated on that. The tax exemption status is kind of still in flux. Chairman Fuller and I met with the property appraiser's office and discussed, and they were going to come out to the port, and you were going to handle that, Chairman, so I defer to you on where that is.
They haven't given me a date when they get all their people together to do that when they do arrangements. Get them up there.
Okay. And related to that, the ongoing litigation with the city of Fernandina Beach, we were scheduled to have a hearing on OHPA's motion to dismiss in September, but they understand things that we've been dealing with and also some factors that play into the tax exempt status. So we have collectively, the city of Fernandina Beach and myself on your behalf, have agreed to delay that hearing on the motion to dismiss, in fact, until early next year, to give us all some time to work this out, to see if we can come to an agreement and an understanding collectively. They know that we've been sidetracked by some other obligations over the last 3 weeks. And so we just kind of collectively bought ourselves some time and pushed that off a little bit to deal with it when we have more information.
Is it advantageous to us to do that?
I think so, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
Anybody got a problem with that discussion? Any discussion about it? All right.
Okay. The only other thing which you all I've been doing my best to keep you apprised of is, the developments in the public records lawsuit, which are a daily development. Today, Judge Fahlgren recused and disqualified himself from the case based on the motion filed by Nassau Terminals, so the case will be reassigned. I don't think it has a whole lot of import on OHPA. There are a couple of outstanding issues we need to deal with. administratively and regarding Judge Baldwin's original order, and we'll do that. But again, Nassau Terminals filed the motion, and based on the law, the judge, he essentially has to recuse himself. There's really no wiggle room, and so he's done so, and it will be reassigned to one of the other circuit judges here in Nassau County.
Yeah, another good ruling with the first part of that. You were that we were entitled to attorney fees and court costs.
Yes, we have a call scheduled with the attorney for Nassau Terminals on Friday afternoon to discuss that.
Okay.
So we're handling that as well. That's all. Yeah, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? All right.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. You're doing a great job. I'm gonna hold off on the operator report, and Reynolds Smith and Gill is here, and we need to discuss some things. And they need to leave. Because they gotta go back to Jacksonville. Justin, come up and.
Good evening.
Put your microphone up closer so we
got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we did, I'm sorry, Justin Gold with RSMH. We were here the last couple of meetings, been developing the scope of work with you for the strategic master plan for the board. Last meeting, last month, we talked about what we provided was a little outside the budget, so we've gone back and basically stricken some items based on our discussion that we thought that we might have to see taken out to get the cost down for the budget we have. So that's what we provided here. I can get through it if you want, line by line, or if you guys would be just want to discuss, let me know.
Justin, you've heard our discussion about the grant that we're going to receive. And we think that we're available, or it's possible that we could keep that like we plan to do it. I think those things that you're taking out are important. I really do. Because some of them involve the community, and we want to get the community involved in this as much as possible. So I think we're going to wait until we figure out and make sure that we can use some of that to fund it with. So we'll talk about it at another time. Because we know that we can fund it fully to be able to get those things added back in. So we appreciate you working with us. The cost is within range now, but a lot of those things taken out, I'm just not comfortable with. I really like to see them in there.
I understood. We would too, and I Commissioner Bell mentioned the public workshop and the resiliency
Yes.
things going on the board.
Yes.
The requirements, so
Right.
that's why we've taken it out to try to help get that down. If there's additional funding available, we agree that it's a very important piece of it.
Yes, and like we've always said, we want the community involved as much as possible. It didn't happen last time we did our master plan. It was a problem, so we want to make sure we have those community involvement sessions and workshops.
That's
Okay? Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you for coming out and sitting through the comment period, and thank you for waiting. Appreciate that.
Yes.
And for redlining the document, I always like seeing the changes in advance. I really appreciate that. I echo what Chairman Foley was saying about the public comment sustainability. But if I may, one of the other pieces that I heard earlier from our community and that I've discussed with West Drive is that the existing footprint of the port has a good capacity and could be better optimized. And so to look at projects which optimize, I think there was some language in there that might have been stricken that discussed that. And I know that oftentimes grant money and this acquisition, the way that grant money is structured, it's geared for So youth is a less of a local match. Those are the funds that are easier to get. But at the same time, what can we be doing within our existing footprint? Maybe it is improvements with physical assets in there, but without exploring so much expansion horizontally, minimizing the impacts of community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we can look at on how to densify or maintain the space that you have. Again, it'll be an iterative process with everyone here involved, and that's the direction we're told to get us.
Any other questions for Justin? Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Sorry we kept it for so long, and thank you for sitting here and listening.
Not a problem. Happy to be here.
We'll be back in touch.
Yes, sir.
Okay, man. Shortly. Thank you. City of Miami Beach Comprehensive Plan. Commissioner Hill, you want to talk about that? I know we got the previous plan that they will present to the city. Is that correct?
Yes, and the planning advisory board meeting was this evening. I have tried to catch part of it, but I didn't get the outcome of the meeting. If this was the draft, that was presented for approval by the community, and then it's sent to the presentation to the city. And I think they're going to leave that meeting because I don't have that in my notes.
Okay, I know that there were still some things in there we asked to be looked at. I think they did that. They took a lot of stuff out.
Oh, yeah. So at the workshop, the committee essentially said we're not going to change the prescriptive language. We are going to say the operator needs to do X. They took a few of my grammatical and typographical changes. They did not accept the buffer language that I suggested. So the timing was challenging. The newspaper headlines didn't help, I don't think. So
I don't know if newspaper at all.
well, the encouraging aspect is that some members of that committee did really care about keeping the port there and keeping our jobs here. Other members are kind of tired of broken promises. So I think there are opportunities to work together. I really do. I see common points of interest. I was encouraged by the city's on this topic, but I was encouraged by some of the city commissioners who wanted to engage with us. I just think they want to engage with us as an elected body, and they want to know that if we make a commitment to the community and to them, that we know that we can follow through. And so I think that there are some members of the city commission who are really paying attention to what we're doing tonight. And I think that they want to see us fix it up. So I hope.
Well, I've said in the past that the city comprehensive plan is the city's plan. It's not our plan. In our master plan, we will work toward accomplishing as many of those things as we can. And we'll certainly do that. There are some things that we may disagree about, but once we get our master plan done, hopefully most of it will be taken care of. And then we'll submit our master plan to the city and they have to adopt it. And if they don't, there's a way to get around that. Mitigation, through mitigation. So we'll do the best we can, and that's all we do. Okay? Any other comments about the comp? Customs House. That's something we want to talk about. Well, unless you just make comments about it, we'll do that in the comments.
No, we did have some attachments with notes on us, the budget for the Customs House. Is that what we're discussing with the upgrades? The repairs?
That's something we'll talk about with the port operator. And yours is our new port director.
Yes, so I've put that on the agenda, but I'll just refer to you.
Okay. Port Sarah.
So I did do this research. You guys are giving me tons of jobs. So I did do some research on our tariff, and I provided those documents to Patrick, and I provided him the government regulations. And Jeremy has those documents, and he's not ruled on them.
Okay. We have them. They're on the staff. It's enough to get to.
Okay, let's go to new business. Hold on. You did come. Okay, well, he's gonna do that. We'll go back. All right, let's go back to the accounting report, and some other stuff. So you're up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Total tonnage for 139,128 tons. So we have two very strong months in a row. Over the last 2 months, averaging about 43,000 metric tons per month. We have opened up a 65,000 metric ton variance on the positive side with where we were year to date at this point. Unless there's any questions.
Any questions on accounting report?
Sorry, on the rental port calls, what, how many of the port calls would be just non-cargo related? How many vessel calls do you have that are the new additional lines of business that were started at COVID?
Your term, new additional lines of business, I don't know.
I'm just referring to the information here in the report.
Yeah, that's some account, that's not. I'm not going to discuss that. These are the vessel calls, most of them multi-day vessel calls, and so that's.
So we don't know what percentage of these vessel calls are actually cargo ships that are moving materials through the port versus just a ship that's sitting there docking. We don't know what percentage of that business we have.
Yeah, you know.
But we don't know.
You've never asked before. So I don't have that information at my fingertips.
Okay, you can like ballpark it.
No, I'm not going to ballpark it.
Well, the reason I asked is that in the operating agreement, non-cargo handling calls. So, for example, when the PB, do you remember by the names you guys are? You remember the technology engineer? Okay, so the BB 10,000, I did right? 1,000. Okay, I'm making it bigger. So when that was parked, that was not part of the cargo handling in our operating agreement. So that would be potentially additional revenue for Ocean Port Authority to negotiate on a case-by-case basis with the operator. So each of those, vessels that the 7 Cs, when they were, tied up as a port, that would be additional revenue that would come to OHPA, and we would use it for, potentially hiring the port director, or, our contribution to the customs house is something that we're going to take the obligation for, or other programs that we could have. So that's just something, that's why I want to know that information, because I think we should, be mindful of our finances.
I've talked about this on several occasions with the port operator, and that revenue doesn't totally go to us. It has to be split.
Right.
And there are no percentages that I've seen. We've got to come to some agreement what it is. And the operator, Chris, says that we're not entitled to any of that. We're going to have to look into that. See where we need to go from there.
So how do we find out, as Ms. Rose is stating, the kind of good information they have is what our docking base, so to speak. Or, I mean, it would be a good information for, if we are looking to increase revenue stream, then that would be something we should be privy to all the time. That's over.
Well, we can request it from the operator. And I think we're going to let Patrick handle that request.
Just so you understand, Commissioner, Ms. Hill is, she's on a farm for here. This is her own personal concept and her own personal legal interpretation of the meaning of parts of the operating agreement. So we don't recognize that. If you want a discussion of what particular provision of the operating agreement means, then we're happy to conduct that with the council and advise.
Well, that's what we're going to do.
That's fine. The line of business that she's alluded to, labor, and which is the only other thing it is, that's part and parcel of the normal operations under the operating agreement. That's not new business, that's not new revenue, that's traditional, right down the middle of the plate port revenue. And the proof of that is that you collect dockage and wharfage on those vessels, just like you do on cargo vessels. In fact, you actually load cargo onto cruise vessels and you remove waste, so you have stevedore. Same thing with the VB10,000. We had to provide heavy lift services to them. We had to use our workers. So,
what kind of heavy lift service did you provide to the VB10,000?
The VB10,000 had certain pieces of heavy equipment that came with it from the water, from the Gulf, that had to be lifted with our cranes and placed on the dock. And some of those are still with us, waiting for them to come back. When they finish in Brunswick, they'll come back and they'll reconfigure the vessel for the ocean trip. We'll load back that equipment. So it's cargo related, it's vessel related work under the operating agreement. We've discussed this a couple of times.
Yes, and I think that's something we're all going to disagree with. We'll let Patrick look into that and come up with a determination of what we need to do. Okay. All right, what else? Anything else? Patrick? All right, Patrick, I want to come back to you about this public record request from Michelle Fox. Do you want to talk about that now? Can you?
Yeah, I can give you the status she asked for. So Michelle Fox is an attorney up in New York. She submitted a public records request. Most of the information, most if not all of the information per my recollection that she requested are not documents that OHPA keeps. They're documents that the port operator keeps. I forwarded the request to the port operator. He indicated that there's some ongoing pending litigation up in New York that either Nassau Terminals or Worldwide's involved in, and that this was an attempt to get around some discovery litigation or limitations. I don't know anything about that lawsuit. My direction to him was that this is a public records request. It doesn't matter who asked for it. If they're public records, we have to provide them. To my knowledge, we didn't receive anything. I got an email from her today, but all she asked for was a copy of her request, which I found a little confusing, and I confirmed with her, and that's what she wanted. So that's what Rosanna provided to her, and that's, as far as I know, that's where we are. But again, the documents that were requested were to my memory, and this was several weeks ago that she submitted a request, were documents and related information that OHPA would not keep because they were about the operation of the operator. So,
Okay, no need to discuss that any further. All right, is there anything else? All right, Port Director report, you have a report to give us, please?
Just the update on the grant process with Aztec and FDOT. As you know, Vice Chairman Cole will be in Panama City as will I, at my own cost and expense, to attend the Aztec portion, the public portion of those proceedings. We haven't had any feedback yet from the people that are looking to allocate the grant, so we usually get a call just to talk about our requests prior to the meeting, which is on the 26th. So I don't have any update, but if I do, I'll let you know.
Okay. Any questions? All right, and Chris, new business, 2020, you might want to stay there for a second. 2021 annual written report from the operator of all maintenance on OHPA equipment for section 2.3 of the operating agreement. I have here a very large, heavy packet of all the maintenance inspections that have been done since you've been there.
Maintenance records.
Yes,
And
maintenance
you all
records.
have a copy of the transmittal email that explains what's in
And this is the public record. If anybody wants to look at that, let it provide it for them.
Does it include a report?
My understanding is the operating agreement requires the records, not a report. I'll have to look at it. We were asked to provide the maintenance record, so we provided that.
Yeah, the section 3.3 says that the operator provided a written report of all maintenance on the equipment.
We
So
can
something-
put something together.
And the records contain facilities, labor, claims,
For drain,
fire systems, scales. That's it.
yeah, all equipment, as the letter says, all facilities, equipment, machinery, that is OHPA's is covered in those files.
Do you have anything to share with the board tonight regarding the projects, regarding the equipment?
Yeah. Yes, we follow our obligations to maintain the equipment in the facilities 100%. We have to keep the facility in working condition. All of the equipment, albeit some of it is older than 30 years and it's suffering from the usual wear and tear, but it's all in good working condition. We spent millions of dollars on maintenance, purchasing services from third-party vendors, purchasing parts, materials, supplies. And what's not included in that file, which would be included in a report, would be also thousands of man hours for our 6-man team of mechanics and electricians that actually performs a lot of the work that they can perform themselves. We buy the parts, we buy the supplies, but we do the vast majority of that ourselves, which is actually not reflected. So those are the outside costs that were expended and what they were for, that goes to the maintenance and repair of the equipment.
So you have staff, certified people that do this, so you have.
Yeah, we have very experienced, we have 6 of our employees are highly experienced work mechanics, 1 of them is an electrician that works on the facility that's needed. And the mechanics, most of them have been with us for 15 to 20 years, so they've worked on this equipment. They know it very, very well, so they do an excellent job.
So do you see most of the physical assets as being, functioning, sustainable, or do you look at your, all the open equipment and think that it's mostly needing to be replaced? Like, where do we stand in terms of, maintenance on equipment? Are we needing to replace a lot of equipment?
Yes, it's a mixed answer. So the only real piece of cargo handling equipment OHPA has is the lead air crane. Now, the lead air crane is 13 years old, and it was purchased in good condition, but as a used crane, it was purchased as is without the warranty. It's the only way you can do it. We find ourselves spending quite a bit of money to repair the repair, to keep it maintained. It's sometimes goes out of service and then we have to, intensively get it back in service. But overall, the crane is in great working shape and we have to spend whatever it takes to keep it that way because we use the crane. We use it today on the vessel. The buildings, so what else is under this maintenance mandate? Mostly the buildings and systems associated with the warehouse building, roofs, fire suppression systems, loading docks, things like that.
The customs office is not included.
No, traditionally the customs office has never been considered part of the port operating group. I think Chairman Fullwood had a novel idea that maybe we could change that, but just traditionally it hadn't been. So we've gotten involved in terms of the repair work on the customs house to bring it back up to code. We've already expended close to $10,000. We're not going to be seeking reimbursement from OHPA. We were asked by Chairman Full to take that on. We just take that on. We haven't argued about what it should be. We probably have about another 10,000 to go before it's completely.
That's what starts?
Yes. Oh, a lot of it's done. We're still waiting on certain things, but we got a report back from one of those mysterious window inspectors. And they presented a proposal for rebuilding the wood sash windows. But we've established that other windows in that building are not original. So it's less expensive to replace the windows with similarly manufactured windows. So I think we have a green light to go forward, but we don't have the sign off from the city yet.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Ross followed up immediately after the last meeting and emailed that I didn't even have to do anything. So he actually did that himself. Yeah, so I was supposed to be the one to follow up on that, but I think
that's a good partnership to that bill.
Well, I mean, it's pretty good when you look at the cost, but thank you for doing that and for doing the whole thing.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, next on the agenda, under new business is the relief fund information. We've already talked sufficiently about that, unless anybody else has anything else to discuss about it.
We need to pass the resolution.
Yes, it's a resolution. And would you like to read that resolution?
I can, if you'd like, sure. Yeah. Okay, and we got some input from DOT on what some of the language should say. So I'm going to read the title and then I'll read the two provisions that pertain to what OHPA is doing. So this is a resolution, it's resolution 2021-R04. That's the good number, Rosanna?
Yes.
This is a resolution of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority of Nassau County, Florida, accepting the Florida Department of Transportation Public Transportation Grant Agreement subaward of the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund and providing an effective date. I do want to read the, so whereas the Florida, this is one of, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You have it in front of you, but whereas the Florida Department of Transportation is responsible for administering and issuing the applicable funds made available pursuant to the FDOT Public Transportation Grant Agreement subaward of the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 to respond to the negative economic impacts of the COVID-19 public health emergency. The amount of the grant awarded to OHPA, and just for all the ports were awarded an amount. All the ports got a different amount. OHPA was awarded $806,772. And so by this resolution, OHPA accepts the awarded relief funds described above, and OHPA agrees to comply with the FDOT Public Transportation Grant requirements for administration of the relief funds described above. So one of the requirements, we've had to process and sign some documents, but required is that this board pass a resolution saying they want the grant and that they will comply with the grant. So that's what this is for.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
To adopt the grant agreement, the resolution of 2021.
I'll second that motion. It's been made and seconded to adopt resolution 2021-R04. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carried. Very good, thank you.
I'll let you know what he says tomorrow.
Thank you so much, folks. Thank you. Good job. All All right, the operating agreement, who's got that on the agenda?
Sure, so, I included this item, because each time that we come up with, requests from the operator, run operating agreements, that we've had multiple agreements. And, I think that we need to enforce those terms of the operating agreement. And, I believe that we should ask Patrick to, enforce the operating agreement for us. They take that.
Any other comment?
So, what do we have from Patrick? The whole operating?
Each of these items that have come up in the last public records request that have been featured on the news and that have drawn the public here to come and watch our meetings. Each of these issues, so getting maintenance records, which now we've received them tonight, for the first time. Okay, so I think we need to go through the operating agreement, and I think that we need to identify all the areas where the operator is not performing.
Patrick and I have discussed this, and we're gonna look at the operating agreement and see what in it we need to see what you're talking about. I'm not sure you need any kind of motion to do that, for you to do it, but I don't think we do. I'm just asking you to do it for us. Come up with a list of things that the operator may be in violation of, that you think is in violation of. And then we'll address that at the next meeting. Or whenever. Okay? Okay? Very good.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, I have to just object to the characterization of non-performing under the operating agreement. Our view is that we're 100% compliant with the fees, we provide the services, we take care of the facilities. If there's some document requests that OHPA hadn't asked for, like the maintenance agreement, they asked for, happy to provide. So we'll look at things that maybe were from a reporting point of view that need to be addressed, but there is no issue of non-performance.
Okay, well, that's what Patrick's gonna look at. That's fine. We'll go with his recommendation and see where it goes. Okay? All right, the next item is the bonding agent presentation. I had asked the bonding agent to come tonight to give us a presentation on our bonding documents and where we stand with those and what we need to do if someone asks for us to do a bonding agreement with them as a conduit agent. She could not be here tonight. She lives in St. Petersburg. She could not be here tonight, but she will be at the next meeting. So we'll get that done. I can also tell you that there has been some inquiry, very serious inquiry about being a conduit for a bond that someone needs. So as soon as we get that information and get it to those people, we may have some details coming in. So just be patient and we'll go from there. I got to handle on it and we'll do what we can. All right. Pretty quick, F on.
I do.
Okay, no, sure.
So I spoke with Mike Rubin and several of the guys at FBOT about our grants, and I think I've briefed before a couple of times. But the document that was in, you know, pretty much Greg Stevens captured in so it's page 75 of the document. We have a grant that expires in December, and this grant, I pulled it up, and it was actually applied for by Josh Webb back in 2015. So it's been on our books for a while. It's been extended twice. And the deal that's said is that they have a certain number of allocations, but if you don't draw down on the grant and perform the project, then what will happen is the grant will expire. I think our Chairman Fuller, you've gone through this a few times when we extended. But what they told me is that if we give the money back, it helps them to not have these non-performing assets on the books. Because when they go to make their application for additional funds, that if mean, it might seem irrational to be requesting a grant on one hand for the rescue fund, but then to be giving them back. So for the people listening, that might seem ridiculous. But this grant is going to expire, and if it expires, it counts against us for future allocations. And so if we don't have a shovel-ready project finished tomorrow to charge to this grant and to submit it in time, which doesn't seem likely, that we should give the money back. Because otherwise, it's close on future allocation. One of the first things they do with offset meetings, every agenda, before they talk about allocating new money, they talk about performance. So before they ever talked about allocating us any money, they would pull up all of our existing grants and say, well, this is what we've already been given and we're not using it. So the direction from them is going to make a shovel-ready project that we can start charging and submitting invoices pretty much immediately. And we should take action to get that money back. And you'll see it's not a large amount of money. It's, but it's just been outstanding for so long. It's 2015, so it just needs to be addressed.
Is this the one for,
In the red, it's a
197?
Right. And it used a different numbering system, so actually, it was one person looking at this, but the grant number is G0L06. So, Chairman Fuller, you remember that one from your FDOT calls. That's the one that keeps coming up as being so old. We need to add to get that one out. And the top of the information here in the, it showed you the description of the original project. I'm sorry, I don't have one copy, but it was for, let's see, cargo improvements of the wharf, maintenance for Fernandina, just like a general maintenance project. But I'm not sure what the specific project was going forward, but that was the request that my classmate made.
Chris and myself and Rosanna meet with the FDOT people mostly every month. Sometimes they cancel meetings. We usually meet with them on Zoom every month to discuss these grants. Chris, you want to address this one in particular?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Commissioner Hill and the Deputy Detective for telling us what we already know all about. You also know about it, Mr. Chairman, because you sit on the FDOT monthly meetings with us, and we update every 6 weeks with FDOT as to where it stands. We have active project and dock repairs going on against this particular grant. We're going to be invoicing against it in the next 30 days, and then we are prepared to get back to balance if it can't be reallocated. So we're on top of it, but we still have some spending to do against it with an ongoing project.
What's the project?
Dock repairs.
And so specifically from what are the dock?
Repairs to the surface of the dock, paving and smoothing out areas, tightening loose crane rails, things like that.
Okay, so is this close to where the ships berth, or what part of the
No,
dock?
it's the surface of the dock. They're not structural repairs. They're just cosmetic.
Okay, and so there's going to be asphalt subcontractors, what nature of work?
There'll be some concrete work potentially and some asphalt work. But this is patching work. This isn't really paving project. And we do some of that ourselves.
So this is the horizontal surface.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get a feel for the project.
Okay, well, you can call me up and ask me anytime. We don't have to take up the public's time with this back and forth. Again, getting you up to speed. Your meeting.
So, all I know is that when I contacted the guys at the State Department of Transportation, were very glad to hear from me, and they wanted to know why we hadn't responded to the fee request for several of the grants that we've already been dispersed. We have a 1.7% fee that we're supposed to pay to us, and we haven't paid that. It's been submitted to the company that oversees.
Well, it's OHPA's obligation to pay, and OHPA's asked us to pay it, and so when we.
But the funding goes past.
The OHPA.
The funding passes through for the project.
Half of it does, and then we have to provide the local match. So again, this is something that we do on an ongoing basis. If you're getting into it newly, I understand you want to get educated.
Is your understanding that that 1.7% fee on the vested grants is not?
Any matching Grace has, on all the grants, has graciously agreed to pay for our portion of those grants, whether it be 50%, whether it be 25%. Otherwise, it would be our obligation.
The operating agreement says that they are supposed to pay those, and it's not going to be this
No,
hard.
no, I don't think so. I don't, I'll look at that, but I don't think they have to pay those grants. Our grants we applied for, and that's what I was talking about with the raise grant. They have to pay those obligations because we can't do it right now.
Well, so what I would not be agreeing on what's on a specific section. There's a section that says that the operator is supposed to say, pay $5,000 per month to go to the capital. Right, it's called capital improvements, and I believe this was voted before I was a member, and I believe Commissioner Franklin and Commissioner Hammond voted against waiving that obligation at $5,000 a month. And that would fund the capital improvements account. That would, but only for that year. Only for that year.
Pierre, keeps an accounting of it, and what Pierre has said every time this comes up is that we're about $3 million ahead of you on outlays for matching grant shares. And so the 5,000 is being burned off that way. So when it comes back to a zero account on what we've expended on OPA's behalf for the matching funds, then we would start paying back that again. So again, we're in compliance and the board did waive that out of the resolution. So let's ask Pierre.
Because honestly, reading it, it's two separate provisions, and that $5,000 a month can include contributions, and it can include that matching, but it is not coextensive with the two separate terms of the agreement. And so I just want to be absolutely clear that I do not buy that.
Patrick, would you look into that also, please, sir? Thank you. Okay.
This grant that she's talking about, that's the one that you was talking to me about the payment that needs to be done on board.
Yeah, that's part of it. We can use it. It's pretty broadly described what we can use it for. We have some billing that's actually work's been done. We have about 100,000 to bill against it. And then we'll make a decision if we can get any more work done and billed before the end of the year, or we'll just write the letter and request that they pay it back. We're well aware of that. We do not squander any grant funds that let them go unused. That's why we meet on a regular basis with FDOT to coordinate all that.
All right, let's move on. Committee reports. For security, there are no issues. Talked in today, and there have been no issues in the last month. Customs House, Commissioner Franklin. Don't have anything to report on.
Someone in the neighborhood has said that they felt unsafe. And they said it's at a community workshop meeting on home records. I'm not the name of the person, but another resident came up to me and said that something was urinating in the street. And so I just wanted to say that port security is not, and I hope I didn't, I hope I stated correctly that, but I said port security works on the port side of the fence. They're not going to be able to respond to you. But if you do feel unsafe, call 911.
Yes.
Okay, because these are all city streets. I just wanted you to know that that was a complaint that you received if you're talking about security. But I just, yeah, I thought that was the only appropriate one.
Port security is its own board, so that would be something totally different. One, certainly, yeah, call 911. Nothing was on the Corps of Engineers. They did a survey, and I responded to the survey. Nothing other than that. Economic Development, Commissioner Cole.
As you mentioned earlier, we are working on some projects which could come through the port. Again, I really need to but we want to get things right. Making some progress.
Okay. Emergency Management, Commissioner Franklin.
So everything before,
Technical Coordinating Committee, Commissioner Hammond. Did they not meet last month?
they're not.
Last Wednesday. The fourth.
Did you go to the meeting?
I did not, sir. I was away.
You start attending those meetings.
Yeah, well, I do. I was away for my anniversary.
TPO, Mr. Collins?
We had discussed last month that we would have a presentation for the 40th event. And the board director is not able to help us with that at this time because of other conflicts. So we're going to, Jeff suggested move it into next month or in September. If they're available, then we can make that presentation then. I had asked that all of y'all come and we could take a tour of the TPO facilities. But if we're not making that presentation, then it probably would be a good idea. You're still welcome to come, but we'll wait till our September meeting. And then today, we did not have a meeting last month. We have a date for September. It'll be the second next meeting. That will be the next month. They're all being regular dates. Excuse me. Yeah, that's the following Wednesday, the 9th, following Thursday, excuse me. The 9th of September.
Right. Nassau Chamber East Side, Commissioner Gill.
So as I shared with you last time, I was working to lead the Nassau program, which so far we've had just our kickoff meeting and haven't really sure when it came over, but they did a great job just sort of giving us an overview of the program. We went out to do as many site visits to this research. But I was curious whether the court visit was included in their agenda. So if they're attending the past, they've done a visit. But I'd like to invite them the class to come. That was something on this board. And then they released the economic dashboard. I haven't gone through the whole document.
I saw that.
But, so that's something we should probably be having on our agenda.
Okay, yeah, I just got that yesterday. Yeah, that's something they've done before. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Cole, West Side Chamber.
Again, we don't really have code, but really not a split of it. We just, we do have a meeting over in that area that I can report on.
Okay. All right, administrative officer manager report. I'm sorry. Oh, city from them, yes, I checked it off. You haven't talked about it, Commissioner Gill.
So I briefly touched on the security question, but I did confirm with the city that they recommend calling 911 with safety issue. I had a call with Tammy, we missed our July meeting because we were all out of town, but we were able to have a call yesterday and they did really good. And so we talked for about an hour. We didn't really kind of touch on any litigation because I'm leaving that separate, but we discussed the sewer pipe, which we were discussing in the meeting, but I don't think there's anything new that came out of that meeting other items.
Chris, let me ask, how late are the trucks allowed to park on the street?
We don't allow them to park on the street, and it's a city ordinance sign that talks about no parking, and they can only be there during something like 7 to 7. Be my guess, but I have to take it over the sign.
So they don't do it after those hours?
No, they have no right to do it. We, even though our guards really only have authority to control within the port, we ask them to keep an eye on the street, and if they see truck or truckers lingering after they've been to the port or after hours, because our people are there around the clock, they will walk down and ask them to leave, and if they won't leave, they'll call them up.
Do you have a policy that we make them abide with?
I think they've been talked to many times.
Yeah, we talk to them, and they have to follow the ordinances on the street.
Okay, so it's a written policy that they have to agree to
No, I mean, to use a vehicle on a public street, they're bound by the ordinance. We don't need to get them to sign it. It's not something that's traditionally done. But I can tell you that I work late many nights, leave that place all hours of the night, come back and forth in the middle of the night. It's not generally a problem. I would chase the truck myself. I don't see trucks parking and spending the night on a day. I've never seen, nor have anybody pulling into the board to me any time in recent memory. Truck drivers, urinating or other things. So we would be very vigilant about trying to prevent that. And I don't think anybody in the neighborhood should feel unsafe. Opposite, they should feel safe because they have man security at all times. It was a cell phone call away from anything that would be.
So hearing this, obviously this is extremely rough facts, but if the police do come onto the scene, they can do a written report. Even if they don't ticket the driver, which I know there's no hesitant to ticket blue collar, Nassau County workers who are just trying to do their job, but they can issue warnings and write reports. Yeah. And so I convey that to Candy, to pass along to COTD, that we want to know what's actually happening so we can be responsible.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I've never heard of a report or incident.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, pictures usually are worth 1,000 words. And today's smartphone, usually someone will just shoot you a picture and there it is, they timestamp. But I think you said the right thing. They should feel free to call 911 at any time. But also, I mean, we could fly it together and pass it out to the truckers just to read past. We're happy to do that.
Well, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
And do you have a dedicated truck line that comes in and brings?
Yes, there's one line that's striped off on Dayton, and that's the only place to truck.
Trucking company. Is there a?
No, we're somewhere
all.
Yeah, there's something. We'll just make hundreds of flyers, and every time a truck comes in, we'll give them a flyer.
Do we have a camera that looks at that area during the day and night?
I would have to check with Ray. We have lots of cameras. There may be one that looks that far down Dayton, but if not, we might be able to put one.
Can we look into that one there?
Sure. That's a great idea.
Let's take care of it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, these designated truck parking on Dade Street for the trucks to park, right, and that's where they park there.
Just limited hours, not overnight. Yeah.
They shouldn't be parking overnight, but they do come in early sometimes to beat the traffic in the school zones and stuff.
And if they do that, there's no place for them to use the restroom, is there?
Well, they can walk up to the gate, and we have restrooms right at the gate. One of the things, not to bring up the soft point, tonight, one of the improvements that we're trying to make is grant requests for to be able to improve the gates to get more trucks inside and reduce the queue. So we're mindful of it, but there are benefits, so they don't have to use the grants. They should just.
Some of them are lazy and don't want to walk down that
That's the problem. We have a lot of lazy people in this. Yeah.
To Commissioner Franklin's point, this section of Dayton is a sign that says no stopping or standing.
Yeah.
So what?
No stopping or standing. So basically,
At certain
trucks
points,
have to
yes.
keep moving.
Especially when they're leaving, they can't stop and talk to other truckers. They have to, when they leave, they have to leave. They gotta keep moving. Yeah. So any thought about maybe putting a forklift somewhere that they could get to easily?
Well, if we had evidence that this was a continuing and recurring problem, but I mean, you can walk the grass. I don't even see any burnt out spots. My neighbor's dog goes over the line onto my grass and I have a series of yellow spots.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, so, but, yeah, right, but I don't see it, but if we see that it's a problem, sure. But, that's just another expense to lay on for nobody to use. But if there was a need, again, we'll talk to the guards about making sure that the bathrooms just inside the gate, next to it, behind the customs house, they're open and available to be used.
There are restrooms available in some of that.
And but not down where they stay.
I don't think they're using the restroom. I think that's just some of the stuff people maybe.
I mean, I don't doubt for 1 minute.
Like I had
Somebody is not gonna walk down, before the gates open, they're not gonna walk down there. I guarantee you that's happened somewhere.
I don't think that people in the river are creating.
No, they.
And if we can know
let's seriously look at putting a camera so we can observe that area and make sure.
And then with that flyer, let the truckers know that we are watching.
We've got a little money now. I think we can use that money for that purpose.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Yes, sir.
Rosanna, you have anything else? Or anything?
For the report, no, nothing out of the ordinary. Last month, we had 2 public records requests. This month, it's still early. And just recently, 2 commissioners complained about having IT issues with their computers, so we'll try to mitigate that.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to make sure they're working.
You've done an awesome job. I know you've been working really hard.
Thank you.
Long hours, well past what she's entitled to do. Agreed.
Please keep business hours.
You try, but, you know, sometimes we demand things that we shouldn't demand. I'm gonna talk about that in just a second. Anything else, Roseanne?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you. Other items to be brought by commissioners, anybody got anything?
Did you review to the end of the year?
I'm sorry,
Is this where I would go to cover the court there?
if you want to talk about that now.
I want to talk about it at some point. I just
Okay,
want to-
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
This is the time, but nothing else after this.
Not the last word, yes, sir. So, I have prepared a resolution which I shared with Patrick to just make sure it was legally structured, legally sufficient. And, I
Share it with anybody else?
No. I just shared it with Patrick. And so this resolution addresses the board director position, and it identifies the resolution which appointed Mr. Lugucci in 2020, which was a January 6, 2020 resolution. And then it says that OHPA has determined it's in its best interest to declare the position of court director vacant until filled and appoint a new temporary OHPA representative outside. And I would like to nominate Chairman Foley for that position. And the reason that I think Chairman Foley should be in that position is that he has sat in on the FDOT calls. And so we've seen the grants, the system, we've seen the CSIP system. And I went in there today, and I'm telling you, as a sign-up person, it's a lot to learn. And so the fact that you have any past experience with that, I think makes you a good job. You're also very responsive, and this role really requires being responsive and sharing what's going on. And I really do believe you would do the best job for the board. And the board director position should stay vacant. And the reason is that in the enacting resolution, which appointed Mr. Lugucci as the director, it says that Mr. Lugucci shall serve as the board director for OHPA for purposes of serving on the FSTEM Council, the Florida Seaport Transportation and Economic Development Council, and section 2, the board director may not have any independent authority to oblige, find, or contract for OHPA. His role as board director is limited to service on this FSTEM Council as well as other testimony, marketing, and advocacy on behalf of OHPA.
Who's gonna do that marketing?
And so I want you to think about those words, as well as customary marketing and advocacy on behalf of OHPA. And I want you to think about the sworn statements that have been made and reported on widely in the court, the filings that have been made with the court. And I'm asking this board to take action to remove Mr. Lugucci as the court director. And I ask for your support for this resolution. I'll remember it because it was R04, and I'll remember it to R05.
And then appoint me as FSTEM.
Yes, then representative, and to declare the position of court director vacant until filled by the court.
One of the things you talked about at our budget meeting was sending 2 people to the Florida Courts Council meetings, which includes FSTEM. Which would mean that if we had 2 people, then we have to pay fees for both of those people to attend.
I thought you might say that, which is why I talked to Mike Rubin about this exact issue. And he says, Val Schweck was a very active member of the FPC board. We've been members for over 30 years. If OHPA wishes to see either delaying payment or removal from the FC board, I'm happy to present any written email requests to the FBC board meeting in August. I realize a meeting in Panama City has placed a budgetary constraint on several of our seaports during this pandemic, and we do not expect some to attend because of the fiscal constraint. So do not count against us, do not attend at all. And I mean, he watched our budget meeting and he responded to the comments that we had at that meeting. And he's already answered the question of whether or not we can lower our fees. And so if truly the rationale is to save money, then we have a solution. And it's a workable solution for our board. And I know your time is precious, so giving the job to one person, honestly, I think there's a lot of people on that. I think it's fine to have it in two separate roles. He's demonstrated that's possible. Mike could still, Vice Chairman Cole could still be our representative of the Board of Works Council. Mike has been a very positive about him. He said he's had a great working relationship on the Board of Works Council. It's a very positive review, so I think that he should stay in this position. He's doing a great job.
So you're okay with sending two people to the meeting?
No, I don't think anyone does. That's the decision.
I think it's important for us to attend those meetings.
Well, can you deal with the question, I request respectfully that you deal with the resolution first, separate from the budgetary question of the meeting. The budgetary question of the meeting is a $1,000 decision. And you can talk about that. I welcome that conversation at our budget workshop. But I think it's very important that this board be responsive to the bigger question of who serves as OHPA's representative in the world. And I think that person should be Attorney Coleman.
Well, I appreciate your confidence. I just am worried about having the time to do that. I'm very busy. I have other things going on, other issues.
There are several of the courts where a commissioner serves as the court or as the court director. The Port St. Joe serves as a
Yes,
court
I
director
understand that.
and a representative of the Board of Works Council.
Yeah.
And it really is more conducive to the types of discussions that are held at those meetings, which are really between the organizations like us, which are the commissions or the elected boards, who are the managing entity. Typically, they have someone who represents them within the meetings, as opposed to the contractor.
All right, there's a resolution been presented. You've heard it. Any comments?
What's your take on being a representative for the council?
I'm not crazy about it. I think you could do both jobs if appointed to them.
I had planned on attending the meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
And they're both at the same time.
Correct.
Same place. Comment, please.
Sure. I did test negative. Right, so when you get it,
The meeting is August, what, 28th? When's the meeting, Mike?
The 24th through the 26th.
Okay. I definitely will not be able to attend this meeting.
This resolution. 2021, all four, that's the.
Well, she's changing it to 05.
Oh, she's changed it.
Yeah,
Because I jumped in front of her in line.
Okay. I didn't know.
Any other comments? second to read.
Yeah, okay, I'm different.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
So what's behind the new resolution is the previous resolution that will be rescinded.
So we'll be rescinding R01 from 2020
Right.
and adopting this one, which would mean and forward as our designated.
And again, the FSED is the, getting in and looking at the different projects, communicating with FDOT on grants, which we're already doing. It really is the grant piece of the report director's role. And we have to certify to the accuracy of each grant filing and carrying forward when we've received grant awards, we've signed documents that say we certified to be, the contents and all that. Right. And so you're already that person who does that. You're already the one looking at these documents and trying to tone. And so I really think it wouldn't necessarily be duplication of existing ones, but I do know that it's kind of great question. I appreciate you considering it. In addition to all of your other responsibilities to explore, because I know you have significant responsibilities against everything. And they get your early and stay late.
Well, it's all on section 3. So my biggest question is, I guess it's really like in your court, my friend. Are you available for these responsibilities? I get the separation of church and state, I'm all for it. So if you're in for it, the challenge, it's actually on your shoulders.
Well, like Commissioner Hill said, I already do the FDOT part of it. Just go into the meetings and trying to make sure we get the grants that we're supposed to get from, the money we're supposed to get from FDOT. I'm not sure if it makes any difference who we've got on the board. We're up there. We don't get.
Well, we have to have a representative.
Yeah, I know we got that.
So we really don't have to have a board director. We can have a board director.
But this is just basically going to, put it out there, you're going to be responsible for this, for our part. So you're going to be representing locals. Obviously, ain't nobody out there better to represent us right now. Again, I don't have a problem with them. It's just more of, you handle it.
Well, I appreciate the confidence. And I think I can handle it, especially after the next 2 weeks. I can't tell you why.
Sure.
It's up to you guys. We'll call for a vote. Any other questions?
I guess I have a question in section 1 of your resolution. Is hereby rescinded, and that section 1 reads that Christopher Genshin shall serve as board director for OHPA for the purposes of serving on the FSTED. And that's it. But are you saying to rescind him completely as board director, or just for that purpose?
No, completely.
Okay.
So we won't have a board director.
Correct. This resolution would declare that position vacant. We are not required to have a board director under our charter.
Right.
And Mr. Bush is serving that capacity at this point. I think it's not possibly agree with that.
Any other comments, questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, I'm open for that. What I want to talk about. I want to talk about a couple of things real quick. Number one, Rosanna does a heck of a job for us. She's limited. She only has certain hours that she can do that. And please don't ask her to do something that she's not required to do. To call anybody to get information, to get things for you, you have the ability to call and do them yourself. So please don't ask her to do any of that. If you want to ask her if she can do it, and she can contact me and I can tell her whether I think it's okay to do that or not. I'd like to handle it that way, and not burden her with having to deal with stuff we should be doing ourselves. That's one thing. Commissioner Franklin, you asked her to copy a lot of things for you, and I understand why you don't like to deal with that computer. And you asked her to do copy the requirements for the grant, and there was almost 100 pages to that.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
And anytime, when she told me it was quite a bit, I don't expect to spend nuclear energy. But a lot of this stuff, I do get a copy and I give it so I have it. And I can copy it off myself, I do have several computers that just as useless as I have. But I can turn them off, but a lot of it this way, when I come and get it, I ask for a lot of fixing. But something that's gonna take a long time, though, I don't need to do that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm.
And me and her talked about that the other day. But I didn't realize it was that much.
It's a lot. Not only that, but it would cost us a lot of money in copy paper and her time especially, because she was almost at the end of the 30 hours she was allowed to work. And she had spent several hours doing it. So let's remember what Rosanna does for us and try to take some burden off her as much as possible. That's all I have. Unless anybody else has anything else, we can adjourn.
I should have defended you.